gotta think about it.
If you've heard those dreaded words before, think about it, and you sell final expense over the phone, then this video is for you. I'm going to show you how you can prevent having a client give the I have to think about it objection at the end, and also how to overcome it if they do give it to you. So we're going to have kind of a twofold approach to this here, because if we can avoid getting it in the first place, that's much better than having to overcome it at the end. As always, if you find value in this content, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on post notifications. Look, so I was a new agent, I was selling on the phone, and I kept hearing this. I have to think about it, I have to think about it. And in my head, it drove me crazy, my blood would boil. I'm like, what do you have to think about? That you're 75 years old and don't have life insurance? Like, what could you possibly have to think about? So I did a lot of research, and I said, look, if you're a professional, you're gonna have to learn how to overcome this, because clearly you don't know how to do it right now. What I'm gonna go into here first off is how you can prevent this from happening. This will drastically increase the amount of money you make selling final expense over the phone. Number one, you want to make sure that you're asking the right question. So in your fact-finding part in your presentation or your script, if you'd like a copy of my script, you can email me at jve@thejve.com. But when you're in your fact-finding section and you're asking them the health questions and you're asking them their beneficiary and you're asking them these other things, you want to make sure that you're digging into the why that they want the program now. So what is this going to do for you? What is this going to do for your beneficiary? What would happen to your beneficiary if you died tomorrow and didn't have a program like this? Would it be hard for them to come up with the money to cover your final arrangements? Would you want them to have to pay for it? Would it be stressful for them to have to pay for it? When you ask these questions and dig in, it kind of gets the person thinking about things that they put off and they don't want to think about. Because I promise you, the clients do not sit there and think about this. They do not think about it. They know right there when they hang up the phone, they're going to move on to something else because they don't want to think about dying. So you have to ask those questions to get them thinking about those painful moments early on. The increasing their pain decreases the amount of certainty that they have to have about you, the company, and the product for them to take action. Increasing the pain threshold decreases the action threshold. So asking the right questions to really dig why they want it will help. And also, you can get someone on the phone who doesn't even want, who has no need for it and doesn't have any real reason to get insurance. There's no one that they care about or whatever. There may be certain situations where it's like, hey, is this person even worth presenting to? So asking those right questions will help. Now, also, when you're in the fact, that's how you get someone certain on the product, okay? That's how you get someone saying, yes, this program is the right fit for me. But there's another factor to certainty, and it's certainty on you. Do they believe in you? Do they feel comfortable working with you? Are they certain about you as an agent and as a professional to help them? So what you do is you want to build a relationship with them throughout the fact finding in the presentation, so that they can see you as a real person, not just an insurance agent. And the way that you do this, the way you establish that connection to make a friend, is by asking them about their personal life and then sharing stories about your personal life that can relate to whatever they tell you. I'll give you an example. So if you ask someone if they live in a small town, or you're like, oh, they live over there in Chippewa, Kansas, or whatever. Like, oh, is that a small town or a big city? They're like, oh, it's a small little town. Say, oh, that's like where everyone knows everyone else's business, right? Be like, oh yeah. Be like, oh, you know, I remember I grew up in a town like that when I was a kid. Man, we had the neighborhood watchdog, aka my mother, who used to go around and just she knew everything about everyone in the whole neighborhood. And they'll laugh because I'm sure they can relate to someone who had, you know, they always laugh because they can relate to someone in their neighborhood, in their small town, who did the same thing. So as you're going through your presentation, you want to share story. If someone mentions, oh, my husband passed and he didn't have life insurance, you can share a story about someone in your family who passed and didn't have life insurance, or someone that you know who passed and didn't have life insurance, or someone you knew who passed and didn't have life insurance. So you can have stories be first person or third person. And you want to create stories around coverage. You want to create stories around family, friends, experiences, favorite things to do that you can share with the client. So part of it is replying to the answers they give you when you ask these probing questions. I'm going to actually put a list of these probing questions in the description of the video. I'm going to put a list of rapport building questions in the description of the video and a little guide that you can walk through so that you can build that relationship. So once you have that relationship built by asking the right questions about them and then sharing stories that shows you're a real person, then they're going to be certain enough on you to further eliminate the chances of them giving you and I have to think about it at the end. Because sometimes they want the insurance. Sometimes they want the insurance. They're just not certain about you. Now, that happened to me the other day. I was on a call and the client, I was helping an agent close a deal, and the client said, well, I want the policy. I just don't know who you are. So I had to really increase her certainty on me in order to close the deal. Okay? And I took her through a process at the end of the presentation, which I'm going to go through in a minute to do that. But what happens is if you're taking the whole presentation yourself, you want to do this in the beginning. Take 10 to 15 minutes before you start getting into the programs and the quotes and everything else to get to know the client, have a conversation, and develop some sort of a relationship with them so that they're comfortable with speaking with you. After we have built certainty on the product and built certainty on ourselves, now we have to go in for the close, and they may give us a think about it after we ask for the sale. So say we give them a quote for $25,000 in insurance, $20,000 and $15,000. Then we say, which one do you want? Which one best fits your needs? Which one do you want your beneficiary, whatever your close is? And they may say, I have to think about it. So at first I was like, okay, do you want to think, do you have to think about like which program or like what exactly is it that you have to think about? And they're not going to come out and tell you most of the time, I don't trust you or I don't like the product. So you have to use a close to overcome that and see what they're thinking about. All right. So I always like to do this, right? When they tell me I have to think about it, I like to say, hey, I hear what you're saying, but let me ask you this. Does the idea make sense to you? Like, do you like the idea of a life insurance program for your daughter if you pass away or whatever the situation is? And they say, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So then now I know they're certain on the product and it's something else. It's either me or maybe there is another company they're shopping around they didn't tell me about or something like that. Right there I know, hey, they're certain on the product. Next, I ask them if I was their benefit. I present a few more features. So I present a couple more features on the plan to reestablish how good it is. And then I ask, hey, if I was your beneficiary, the person that's getting this money, would you do it? If that person was recommending for you to do it, would you do it? And usually they say yes, of course. So at that point, you know, okay, it's just a trust on me. I reintroduce myself. I go over who I am, what I stand for, what I represent, what I believe in, and how I've been there through my clients. And then I go in for the close again, and I recommend they go with the lowest amount of coverage that I quoted them and tell them they can post-date the payment in the next 30 days. Now, just because I recommend they can post-date doesn't mean that I don't go for the payment when we actually do the application. But you do that. And what you're doing, you're building up certainty on the product, yourself, and then you're asking for a lower sale. And the value is built more, and then you're asking for less. So a lot of them will bite there. A lot of those people will buy right there. Now, if they still tell you they have to think about it, I want you to look at the rebuttals page in the description of this video. And when you click on that, it'll pop up. There'll be a bunch of buttons that'll show different objections that your client could give you. You want to click on the one that says, I have to think about it, and you want to read that first option and then ask for the sale. Read the second option, ask for the sale, and you go through all those. Now, you want to get about 5 or 6 no's or 5 or 6 I have to think about it before you really, really say, okay, cool, let me follow up with you, whatever it is that you have to think about. But what you want to really dial in on is what is it that they have to think about? Do they have to think about whether they want insurance? Do they have to think about working with you? Do they have to think about whether they can afford it or not? Maybe they're lying to you about their health and you don't realize that, right? Maybe they don't want to tell you that. Maybe they got a quote somewhere else and they're shopping around and they don't want to tell you. So these are things that are going to come up. But by asking the right questions, establishing a relationship, and then knowing how to close it when those things come up, you're going to drastically decrease the amount of think about it that you hear, and you're going to increase the amount of times you're able to close when someone tells you, I have to think about it. Included at the end here, I'm going to play a little recording of me going through this with a client and closing her on the sale. I hope you guys are able to apply this to your sales and make some money. Happy selling, everybody.
And out of those ones there, which of those caught your eye? Like, which one would you lean towards as like, hey, that's probably the best fitting?
The one that's looking good for me for now is 25, but
okay.
But the thing is, I wanna think about it. I don't wanna get it out right now.
Let me ask you this: the idea makes sense to you, right? Like you like the idea of a program like this? Okay, exactly. Now, the true beauty of this program here, Anna, is that not only is it going to kick in the day you make your first payment, unlike other programs out there, but you'll also be able to get the money advanced to you ahead of time if you get really sick before you pass, which is what happens with most people. Now, who would take care of you? if you got really sick tomorrow, heaven forbid, it's just hypothetical. If you got really sick, your kids, okay, do they work?
My kid, my kid works.
Yeah, exactly. So what would happen if they had to take time off from work to take care of you? They wouldn't. They would either lose their job or they'd make less money, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what happens is if you have this plan with them for $25,000, if you're in that situation, you can get that money ahead of time because the company says, well, Anna's reaching the last stages of her life here. We want to get the money to her ahead of time. So you would be able to have that to take care of your bills and stay on your feet and provide that to your children because they're going to I dealt with that with my mom. My mom had terminal cancer for 4 months. I had to fly back to Massachusetts from Florida like 8 times to bring her to doctor's appointments and all this stuff. It was a total financial mess for me. The cremation was cheap. The expensive part was taking care of her before she passed. Your kids are going to follow that same situation if anything like that ever happens to you. Okay? So this is going to go a long way. Now, which of your kids would take care of this? Which one would be stepping up?
My daughter.
Okay, and what's her name?
Yvette.
Yvette. Okay. So, if Yvette came to you and was like, "Mom, I on this plan, okay, it's got all these things that are going to help me, and I'm going to need this." Even if Yvette has a couple dollars, unless she's like a millionaire, which she could be, unless she's like a millionaire, coming up with $20,000 or more is definitely going to put a wrench in her financial plan. So, if I was Yvette and I said, "Mom, I need this. I need something like this to help me when you pass. You're young, you're healthy, but someday you're going to be older and not so healthy. Please let's get something in place to handle it." If I was Yvette and I came to you saying that, you'd probably say, "All right, well, we'll figure out something that works and we'll move forward on it." Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. Now, I get that, and I don't have the luxury of a track record with you like Yvette. Obviously, she's your daughter. But my name's Justin, and I'm with Senior Life Services. We're local to Vero Beach, Florida, and I really pride myself on my ability to go the extra mile for my clients. Most life insurance agents don't make it. 92% don't make it through their first year in the business, and I've been doing this for 5 years. So I've made it through, and I really think what's helped me do that is being there for my clients every step of the way, and I've helped a lot of their beneficiaries file claims to make sure they get that money fast. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing to me, making sure that your daughter Yvette and your children will be taken care of with this, and that's what's important to our company too. Okay? So why don't we do this? Why don't we start with the $15,000, okay? At least we put in an application, you get approved for it, if something happens, at least like your funeral's covered, okay? We put an application for the $15,000. We can put the first payment out up to a month out. Okay, you don't even have to make a payment today. I can waive the first payment. And as soon as you get approved for this, which I may know immediately right when we submit, you can finally start checking this off your list and get the ball rolling on it. Does that sound fair enough?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool.